persons having anything to do before the Honorable David Lowy, Justice of the Superior Court, now sitting at Salem, within and for this county of Essex, draw near. With your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is now in session. You may be seated.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and thank you for your punctuality this morning. I'm aware that you were all ready to come into the courtroom at 8:50 this morning, and we've held you up for a period of time. Sometimes the court needs to address issues of law outside the presence of the jury. That's not to keep important information away from you, but to make sure that the evidence is presented in a fair manner, in a manner that gives you a fair opportunity to evaluate the weight or the worth of that testimony. And this morning there were some issues of law that just needed to be addressed before you came into court. The series of questions for all of you, if you answer any of my questions is yes, please raise your hand. Otherwise, there's no need to respond verbally to any of my questions. Any of the jurors have any difficulty following the instructions of the court not to discuss the case among yourselves with anybody else? Any of the jurors have any difficulty following the instructions of the court not to do any independent investigation concerning this case and avoid information from any source other than when in the courtroom? Is there any serious and substantial issue involving your jury duty that you need to alert the court to at this time? None of the jurors have answered affirmatively. Ms. Regan, please. Ms. Zoker, please.
Eduardo Barbieri, please.
Come up, sir.
Sir, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the cause now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
Yes, I do.
You may be seated.
This way, sir. Everything is not comfortable here. This space is on it for one moment. You may be seated.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Sir, there's been a motion to sequester witnesses in the case, so until all the evidence is over, you can only be in the courtroom when you're testifying. You can't talk about your testimony with the other witnesses or let them talk about theirs with you. Thank you. Ms. Oakley, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir. Could you please state your name and spell your name first and last for the court?
Good morning. My name is Eduardo Barbieri. Last name B as in boy, A-R-B-I-E-R-I. First name is Eduardo, E-D-U-A-R-D-O.
Thank you, sir. Sir, where do you live?
I live in Pompano Beach, Florida.
Are you employed?
No, I'm retired now.
Thank you. Are you related to Philip Chism?
Yes.
How are you related to him?
He is my beloved grandson.
Now, who is Philip's grandmother?
Philip's grandmother is, she passed away, right?
Well, your wife, your ex-wife, Mr. Barbieri.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It's Joyce Leck.
Is Leck her maiden name, Mr. Barbieri?
Yes.
Was her name Barbieri when you were married to her?
Yes, she took my name as well.
Have you since divorced?
Yes, we've been divorced.
And what year were you divorced?
2003.
Now, is Joyce Leck's or Joyce Leck Barbieri's date of birth May 24th, 1954?
Yes.
Where did you meet her?
Well, I met her in Beverly. There was a nightclub there named Sandy's. I don't know if they still have that any longer, but that was when I first met her.
Whenabouts was that you met her?
Oh, let me see. It's a long time ago, back in 1970.
Did you and Joyce have children?
Yes.
How many children did you two have?
3 children.
Now, can you tell us their names?
Yes. It's first one, she is still in Brazil. Her name is Stephanie. The second one is Michele. And the third one is my beauty, Diana.
Now, is Diana Phillips' mother?
Yes, she is.
And is Michelle's date of birth May 1st, 1974?
That's correct.
Now, Mr. Barbieri, during your marriage to Joyce, did she at some point become ill?
Yes, she did.
What kind of illness did she develop?
Well, first she had a nervous breakdown. I was in Salem, Massachusetts. I was living at the time here. And she had to go to the Salem hospital. Do you want me to tell me what happened? Okay, I'm sorry.
What year was this that this happened, the first breakdown, if you recall?
Let me see. 1975 or 74.
Okay. When she was in the hospital that first time, do you know what sort of treatment she received?
Yes, I do remember.
Can you tell us what sort of treatment she received?
Yes, I do remember quite well. Even the name of the psychiatrist was Dr. Zargai. He was from Yugoslavia. She had shock treatment, not only once, but many times.
Was she in the hospital for a long time?
Yes.
So, was this before Diana was born?
Oh, yeah, because Diane was born in Brazil. She has dual nationality.
Okay. So, before that first hospitalization for Joyce, when she became ill, you were living with her at the time?
Oh, yeah.
Is that
at
right?
8 Scary Street in Salem.
So, was it sudden or gradual, her becoming ill?
Well, her behavior started to get very funny because I used to work in a place called Augustini's. There was an Italian restaurant on Route 1. I don't know if they still have those any longer here. And I used to work from 3 to 11 at the restaurant. And when I came home that specific night, and then right after I took my shower, the kids wasn't fed at all, and they had, I'm sorry I have to say the word in here.
You don't have to say
okay,
it. You don't have to say it, Mr. Barbieri.
So, and then all of a sudden, I went to there was on top of the table, I love orange, so I got the orange, and when I cut the orange in half, and then she told me, why are you gonna eat orange? Orange is no good. And then she just ran outside the house.
So is it fair to say that her illness came on suddenly as far as you knew?
Yes.
Now, after her hospitalization in Salem, did you and Joyce and the two children move back to Brazil?
Yes, we did went to Brazil.
What did you do for work while you were in Brazil?
I was a school teacher there.
What did you teach?
English.
At what kind of school?
Oh, it's high school kids. And in Brazil, we have what we call cursinho for vestibular. It's a preparatory school. Just before you go to college, you have to pass in order for you to get in college.
And did Joyce have further troubles when you were in Brazil?
Yes, many times.
Was she in the hospital?
Yes. She had to stay in a hospital in interior of São Paulo state. I was living at the time in São Paulo. It's a Marital Institute that was for mental illness.
So these were psychiatric problems?
Yes, she did have.
At some point, did you return to the United States?
Yes.
And who came with you?
My ex-wife, Joyce, and my beauty, Diana.
Now, why did Michelle and Stephanie not come with you?
Okay. My mom at the time, she was 67 years old, and she had many grandsons. And then I went in a separate room, and then I prayed to God, what should I do? Because Joyce, she didn't want to stay in Brazil. She just say, I want to go back to the state. I don't want to stay here any longer, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then my mom took care of the two, Stephanie and Michelle, and
Well,
I brought...
excuse me a minute, Mr. Barbieri. Let me ask you the question in a little different way. So,
Okay.
was it your feeling at the time that Joyce could take good care
No,
of
she...
all three children?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but even if you know what Ms. Oker's going to say, wait until she has her whole question finished before you answer it.
Thank you much, sir.
Was it your feeling at the time that Joyce could take care of the children?
No, she couldn't.
So was it for that reason that you left the two older girls with your mother?
Yes.
Now, in your life with Joyce after returning to the United States, did she continue to have psychiatric hospitalizations?
Yes, she did.
Now, Michelle, is she your middle daughter then?
Yes, she is.
Did she also develop mental illness at some point?
Yes, she did.
What did you see yourself as far as Michelle suffering from psychiatric problems?
Well, I would say the same thing as my ex-wife. The same type of problem. She couldn't handle anything.
Were you aware of Michelle having psychiatric hospitalizations?
Yes.
And was there a period of time when Michelle lived near you in Florida?
Yeah, she lived with me. Because...
And can you describe whether she was having psychiatric problems during that time?
Yeah, she did. I had my other grandson named Christian, and she couldn't take care of the baby. I was doing that, and my wife, my Brazilian wife, was doing that.
Now, roughly how long have you lived in Florida now?
Oh, let me see, 2001, 14 years.
Was there a time when Diana and her children lived near you in Florida?
Yes, she did.
Can you say roughly when that was?
2009, I would say so, 2009.
So would Philip have been about 9 years old at the
Yes.
time? Does that sound
9
right to
to
you?
10 years old, right.
So what did you, during that time that you lived close to Diana and the children, what did you observe as to what sort of child Philip was?
Well, the only thing that I could say right now, he was very quiet kid, very, very quiet, and a beautiful soul. And
Did he behave well?
yes, he did.
Was he respectful to people around him?
Yes, what I've seen at the time, he was very respectful.
Now, Mr. Barbieri, did you play soccer?
Pardon me, can you repeat?
Did you play soccer in
Yes,
your life? Did
yes.
you play soccer?
I used to play professional in Brazil at the time, and then we moved to the States. Should I go, Kim? Okay. We moved to the States. There was 25 players that came at the time from Belo Horizonte, São Paulo, and Rio de Janeiro to play soccer over here as a
And,
professional.
When you spent time with Philip, did Philip play soccer?
Yes, as a matter of fact, if I could say, my other grandson, I was hoping if because I only had girls in the family, I was hoping if one day I would have a boy that plays soccer, they would enjoy playing soccer. And I could tell at the time he was gonna be the best because I taught him some tricks in soccer, the way to do it, and he caught that very easily.
So did you share a love of soccer with
Oh,
Philip?
yes, I did.
I have no further questions of of the witness. Thank you, Mr. Barbieri.
Thank you.
I do have a motion to introduce some records, Your Honor.
Okay. Have you reviewed them, Ms. McDougal?
I have, Your Honor, I would ask to be heard.
Okay. All right, I'll see counsel at the sidebar. All right, may be admitted to Bene. Sure.
Yes. Exhibit 139.
Good morning, Mr. Barbieri.
Ready?
Mr. Barbieri, with respect to the illness of your former wife, did she ever assault anyone?
No, she didn't.
Was she at times suicidal? Was she at risk to harm herself?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry. To harm herself?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. But she never harmed anyone else except in that she was not capable of caring for your daughters. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And with respect to your daughter, Michelle, has she ever been assaultive towards anyone?
No.
Again, has she suffered at times from suicidal thoughts?
No.
Have you ever been concerned that Michelle would harm herself?
No.
Okay. Your grandson, Philip, when was the last time that you saw him?
Philip, 2007.
Well, I think you said, I'm not trying to confuse you at all, but I think you said he lived in Florida in 2009, 2010?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. So after he and his family left Florida to go back to Tennessee, did you see him again in person?
No, I didn't.
Okay. But when and about how long did Diana and her children live in Florida near to you?
Oh. I'm going to guess about 2 years.
Okay.
Is that a
And-
guess or an estimate, sir?
Pardon me?
Is that a guess or an estimate?
An estimate.
During the time that they lived in Florida, how often would you see Philip?
Most every single day.
Okay. And you've already described he was a quiet kid, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
But otherwise, a good boy, correct?
Beautiful.
Okay. And you and he shared a love of soccer?
Yes,
He was very good at soccer.
very good at soccer.
And even after he moved back to Tennessee and then to Danvers, would you speak to him by phone?
Yes, we did.
And would you speak to him about soccer?
Yes.
Would he let you know how he was doing on his teams? And
Oh, he was doing very well, I would say so, because he even told me that he scored a goal.
would he call you to say, hey, I scored a goal?
Pardon me?
Would he call you to let you know he'd done well in a game?
Yes.
And did that continue when Diana and her family moved to Danvers, to Massachusetts?
Yes.
So during the time that they lived in Danvers in September and October of 2013, you spoke to your grandson by phone?
No.
Okay. You didn't speak to him?
No.
Okay. Do you remember the last time you spoke to him before the murder?
You mean before 2013?
Before October 22nd of 2013, how long had it been that you spoke to your grandson?
Oh, it's been quite a while.
Okay. Months, weeks?
Yes.
The last time you spoke to him, was he living in Tennessee?
No. Danvers.
Okay. I think I confused you. You know that your daughter Diana and her children moved back to Massachusetts in around August of 2013. Is that correct?
Yes.
And they were going to live with her maternal family.
Yes.
Okay. And after they had relocated back to Massachusetts, were there times that you spoke to Philip by phone?
I guess just once.
And during that conversation, was he the same grandson, Philip, that you had always known?
Yes.
I have nothing further for Mr. Barbieri.
Ms. Oker, anything? Nothing. All right, thank you, sir. Thank you much, Your Honor. Next witness, please.
Mr. President, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the cause now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God? I do. You may be seated.
Morning. Been a motion to sequester witnesses. In the case, all that means is until all the evidence is over, you can't be in the courtroom unless you're testifying. You can't talk about your testimony with the other witnesses or let them talk about theirs with you. Thank you. Ms. Oker, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your first and last names for the court?
Okay, my name is Claudia Rodriguez, Claudia-Rodriguez.
Thank you. Where do you live, Ms. Rodriguez?
I live in Clarksville, Tennessee,
How long have you lived there?
for about 23 years.
With whom do you live there?
I live there with my husband and my 2 children.
Ms. Rodriguez, are you employed?
Yes, I am.
How are you employed?
I'm sorry. I'm employed at Austin Peay State University in Clarksville.
What do you do there?
I oversee an early childhood grant that provides professional development training to licensed child care providers in 11 counties in the state of Tennessee.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Rodriguez, do you know Diana Chism and her children?
Yes, I do.
How did you first meet Diana Chism?
I met Diana and her children when Philip was about 3 years old. She, at the time, I was a program director at a nonprofit Christian child care program, and she was seeking good child care for her children at the time.
So did you get to know Diana and all of her children?
At the time, both of them, because both of them started at our child care program. Yes, ma'am.
So Diana had 2 children at the time?
Yes, Philip and his other sister, who was at the time 1 year old.
Did you become friendly with Diana?
I did. At first, it was more professional level, but over the time, we have become very close friends.
How would you describe your observations of the children, the 2 children in those early days?
They were just simply well taken care for and just simply loved, absolutely loved.
And if you know, can you describe what you knew of the nature of Diana Chism's marriage at that time?
At the time, it became very quickly evident that there was marital issues. Her husband at the time on numerous occasions was unfortunately unfaithful, and so she struggled with the marriage.
Was there a time in those early days, as a result of those troubles, that Diana and the children came to stay with you?
She did. She struggled with her marriage, and at one point he was unfaithful, and she was devastated and wanted to leave the marriage. And at that time, with the 2 young children, she didn't know where to go, and I offered to stay with us for a few weeks until she has an apartment worked out.
How would you describe what you observed of the children during that period of time?
During that period of time, even though it was a struggle in the marital issues, they were happy. They have their childcare program to go to throughout the day, and they're simply happy and well taken care of.
At some point after that stay in your home, did Diana Chism move to Florida?
Yes, she did.
Did you remain in contact with her?
I did, more so on social media, through Facebook.
Roughly how long were they away in Florida?
Approximately about a year, maybe a little bit more.
Okay, and did they return to Tennessee at some point?
They did.
Do you know when that was?
I believe it was in 2010, May, June of 2010.
Now, when they returned to Tennessee from Florida, did Diana and the children stay with you again?
Yes, they did.
How long a period of time did they stay with you during that period?
About 6 months.
And why was that?
She was again devastated and wanted to leave the marriage. At this time, she had 3 children. And he was unfaithful again, and so I offered, through conversations, I offered for her to come stay with us until she could get her feet back on the ground and find a job, and everything would work out. So they did stay for 6 months.
Where in your home did Diana and her children stay during those 6 or so months?
They stayed in a bonus room. We had a separate bonus room that we had as a playroom, and we converted it quickly into a living space for them.
So it was Diana and 3 children at that time?
Correct.
Roughly how old was Philip at that point?
He was about 10.
How
10,
would
maybe
you,
11.
10 or 11? Mm-hmm. Sorry. How would you describe what you observed of Philip during that time when he lived in your home, when he was 10 or 11?
Because I hadn't seen him for a few years, so he changed from just this young little kid to now a pre-teenager, which, just developmentally, he was maybe a little bit more moody, reserved at times, but other than that, a typical developing pre-teenager. Very respectful to me, as well as my husband when he was not deployed.
Was there any problem with Philip following the rules of your home?
None whatsoever. He was extremely well behaved. He assisted, I had this little chores, dividing up the chores. Everybody was responsible of doing things. So he was glad to take on, usually it's the trash is what he took on as his responsibility, take out the trash and cleaning up after we would eat together, things like that.
Did Philip spend time outside of your home during that time period with with another family?
Absolutely. He loved being with the Carter family. The son, Tanner, was his best friend, and so they have reconnected and they have found each other again. And that definitely was one. He'd much rather be with the Carter family than actually at my house, being cramped in this small bonus room.
How much time would you say in a normal week Philip would spend with Tanner Carter and his family during that time period?
Well, during the summertime when the school was out, he was easily there about 3 to 4 days a week. Usually consecutive days, because the Carter family would take weekend trips to Paducah, and so he was always welcome to join them. So during the summertime, I would say sometimes 3 to 4 days. Once school started up again, I would say probably the weekend, Friday through Sunday.
Now again, during this time period when they were living in your home, did you make observations as to challenges Diana was having in providing routine or structure for her children?
Yes, she did. She had struggled, and but it was in general, it was a new situation. It was hard to get a routine in with all the children in one bonus room, everybody sharing one bathroom between two families, and things like that. So yes, there was definitely at times, I would say, a lack of routine until really the school year started. Then it was getting better.
At some point, did Diana move out with her children?
She did. I believe it was about November, and that was because it took a few months for her to get a position, get a job and be employed with benefits. And so we needed, it was in her best interest and in the children's interest, and she was well aware of that, to stay just a little bit longer to make sure she has the security deposit and rent and connection fees and things like that saved up.
But by about sometime in November, she was able to move out into an
Yes,
apartment?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Were you familiar with their home when they lived in that apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you spend time there?
Not as much. We helped her, of course, to move. We organized for all of our friends to donate items that they could use because she didn't have anything at this time. And so we organized to get all the materials together, from the furniture to the kitchen supplies, and helped her move in. And at this point, I felt, because the time frame that they stayed with me for 6 months, that it was time for her to find herself with a routine as a single mom and a responsibility as a sole provider at that time. So I wanted to kind of make sure that this is now the time to really learn this.
Were you familiar with the bedroom arrangement in that apartment?
Yes, I do.
And what was that?
Well, for her, it was very, very important because Philip was a preteen at that time and the only boy, so he was able to stay in his own room. She made sure he had his own room, and Diana actually shared a room with the two girls.
Now, would you describe that household as chaotic at times?
Possible at times, yes, ma'am.
And is that difficult for you to talk about because of your friendship with Diana?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, to your knowledge, was there a point after that when Diana and the children had to move to a different apartment?
Correct. It may have been a month or two into it. I really don't know the exact time frame, but within a few months, she had actually informed me that she had to move into another apartment because she wasn't able to pay the rent, and I believe, but I'm not 100% sure, I believe she was evicted at that time. So she found a new apartment, and but she made sure it was within the same community because they have already at that time made friends, and so she found something right a few houses down the road that was just owned from a different company.
And would you describe her as struggling at that point in time, struggling financially and otherwise?
Once she moved out of our home, she struggled quite a deal. as a single mom, 3 children, the needs always of the children came first and then everything else. But she did struggle. She did not receive any child support from her husband, nor financial support, nor emotional support. So she was the mom, the dad, the person that just made it happen.
Was there a time, another time, a third time, when Diana and the children came to live with you?
Yes, the final time the decision was made that she wanted to come back to Massachusetts to be with her family, and during this time when she moved, we had this agreement she was going to stay with us for just a few days, just to have our last time together.
And how long did she stay with you? Do you need a moment? How long did she stay with you at that time?
About 3 weeks.
Was that, I'm sorry, Ms. Rodriguez, was that in 2013?
Yes, it was. The intent was to stay a few days, and we had a fantastic time, but the intent was originally just a few days, just to be together. And but some issues came about with the van. The van had broken down. There was a delay in getting the parts, and so again, life struggle because of finances, and it just dragged out for around 3 weeks.
What did you observe about Philip during those weeks when he lived in your home?
Again, those 3 weeks, because now it's again summertime, most of the time he really wanted to again stay with the Carter family, because he knew that was going to be one of the last few times he gets to see his best friend. And he connected not just only with his best friend, of course, over the years, and his mother, Sabrina, but also with her whole family in Paducah. So again, majority of the time, he actually did spend again with them in Paducah.
Was he well behaved in your home?
Absolutely. We've never had any problems with him misbehaving. He needed the guidance in regard what's expected, and but he was as respectful to myself as he was to my husband.
What kinds of things did you do with Philip yourself when he lived in your home those last weeks?
Being a teenager, I knew on a personal story, I had to move so many times, and I knew it was always a struggle. So I took the moment with him at nighttime and just tried to talk to him about really that it's okay to feel upset or to feel sad about leaving, but all the positive that may come as you transition into a new environment. And I shared with him that when I grew up, I used to do puzzles. Every time we'd move, that was the one thing I really was into. And we broke out puzzles, and we, between Philip and I, mainly till sometimes midnight, we would do 1,000-piece puzzle pieces, and we played rummy on the board, and things like that. Normal, really children's things.
Speaking of nighttime, was there an issue during those weeks with Philip's schedule or sleeping habits?
Absolutely. When he was at the house, of course I can't speak from the Carter during the other times, but when he was at the house, he was not in a routine of a good sleeping teenager. He would definitely be up sometimes 3, 4, even 5 o'clock in the morning, and that was actually unaware to me, but rather my husband, who would wake up and he would still hear him playing on the Xbox or things like that.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mrs.
Morning.
Rodriguez. Mrs. Rodriguez, you indicated that both now and when you first met Diana Chism and her children, you were working in early childhood, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And I would assume you have some training in childhood development, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And I think you've referenced a couple of times, even in describing your observations of Philip, that while sometimes his behavior was different than others, it always seemed to you to be developmentally appropriate.
Correct.
And even when they returned from Florida and lived with you for, I think you said about 6 months, is that correct?
From Florida? Yes, ma'am. 6
Okay.
months.
And that's roughly 2010?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you indicated, or you have indicated that during that time you observed that Philip had changed a little from the little boy who had left to go to Florida. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
But he just sort of seemed like a typical teenager.
Right.
Quieter,
Yes,
okay?
definitely quieter.
Little moody.
Yeah, I would say that. At
and you-
times.
And you observed that even his younger sister seemed a little snotty when they first came back to Florida. Those kids weren't in an ideal situation when they lived with you for those 6 months. Is that correct?
His younger sister, I've never observed being in a, kind of, I can't say that they were rude or anything like
Okay.
that, the younger sister. Or three
Did you
children
notice
at
any
this time.
changes in them when they came back from Florida?
Yes, they were more quiet and older, more mature, I guess. And I had never met the younger child. So.
Okay, okay. Now, when they lived with you for those 6 months, you've indicated that Philip would often go and stay with the Carter family, with his friend Tanner. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Yes,
And in fact, you've observed it was almost as if he was craving normal to go stay with the Carters.
I would agree, absolutely.
There less chaos, more routine at the Carter house.
Yeah. Well, more space too,
Right.
more freedom.
And because you had them all in generously, but had them in one room, there just wasn't a lot of
Correct.
room. Is that
Correct.
correct? But you've observed that Diana Chism did the best she could for her children.
Absolutely.
And in particular, she made special efforts for Philip. Is that fair to say?
I would say so, yes.
Okay. So he got his own room in that first apartment when they moved out from you.
Yes.
And you've observed that as tight as money was, if Philip wanted something, she would sacrifice to make sure Philip got what he wanted.
For most part, yes.
So even when basic needs maybe were a struggle, if Philip wanted an item, she would do the best she could to take care of it for him.
Well, I would say the basic needs were always met first.
Okay.
Then came the extra fluff, and then it was, if the extra fluff had to be divided up, she wanted to make sure that Philip, being a teenager, that he wouldn't be singled out.
So if kids once basic needs were taken care of, if teenage boys had something that all teenage boys had, she wanted Philip to have that too.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, did you have any relationship or know at all Stacy Chism, Philip's father?
I've met him a few times during the time that they were at our childcare program. He came in a few times, but majority, all the family involvement and things like that was all taken care of by Miss Diana.
And you were aware of, throughout your friendship with Diana, a chronic issue with Stacy Chism of infidelity.
Absolutely.
And fair to say you didn't think he treated Diana very well.
No.
Were you ever aware of any physical abuse of Diana?
No.
Were you ever aware of any physical abuse of any of the 3 children?
No.
Were you ever aware of any sexual abuse of Diana?
No.
Were you ever aware of any sexual abuse of any of the 3 children?
No, not at all.
And you have said that during each of the times that Philip lived with your family, he was nothing but respectful to you and your husband.
Absolutely.
Were there times you observed him being less than respectful to his mother?
More moody, yes.
And in fact, in that last stay, just before they moved to Massachusetts, you observed him get pretty angry with his mom. Is that correct?
At one point he did.
Was he unhappy about the move?
Well, when we spoke, I tried to get it out of him, but he didn't respond. I was very upfront. I said, "Tell me how you feel about moving." And, but there was he wouldn't respond, but he was very receptive. That was when I took the opportunity just to talk, because I knew he was listening. He may have not just responded, but he was listening, and that to me was very important.
So when you interacted in him in that exchange, when you reached out to him, you felt like you were making a connection with him. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And in fact, the move to Massachusetts was delayed by the car trouble. They were supposed to move in July, and it got closer and closer to when Philip was going to start high school. Is that correct?
Correct. About 3 weeks.
And you talked about the board games that you would play with Philip, is that correct?
Yeah, and puzzles and
Sorry, I
Rummy on the
apologize,
board.
puzzles. And did your husband also play games with Philip?
He did.
What did he play with Philip?
He played chess with Philip.
And was that a frequent occurrence?
Well, it was just a few nights because he realized too that it was a sad time to leave. There was something there that you knew. Kids are in general are very resilient, and younger ones probably more so, but you knew that at a teenage year that could be some challenging times. And so my husband played chess with him and lost every single time.
Philip was really good at chess.
Apparently, I don't know how to play.
Okay. And then, ma'am, you talked about that Philip, your husband was more sort of the one who brought your attention to it, but there were often nights when Philip would stay up most of the night. Is that correct?
Yes, when he was at the house, yes, ma'am.
And he'd be playing video games?
Yes.
Did he have access to video games at your house?
The what?
Was he able to play video games at your house?
Yes, like Xbox, and my son has like a live, I'm not sure what kind of games those are, to be honest.
Was that something that was Philip's, or was that something that he was able to play because he was living at your home and your sons had it?
It was my son's. No, it was the family's.
Oh, sorry.
It was the family's, I guess.
But it was your family's, not the children's?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have nothing further.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next witness, please, Ms. Oka.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the cause now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, I do. You may be seated.
Oh, Your Honor, I apologize. This witness has been exempted from the sequestration order.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. You may proceed, Ms. Oka.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. Could you please state your name and spell your first and last name for the court?
Sabrina Carter, Sabrina, last name Carter.
Thank you. Where do you live, Ms. Carter?
Clarksville, Tennessee.
Could you move up a little closer to the microphone, please? Thank you.
With whom do you live there?
My husband, our son, and our daughter.
Are you employed?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are you employed?
I am a preschool director at a preschool in Clarksville.
How long have you lived in Clarksville?
We have been there for almost 15 years.
And where are you from?
Paducah, Kentucky.
Do you still have family there?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know Diana Chism and her children?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you first meet?
At a child care center that I worked at, I had
If you could just a little louder, please.
I had her daughter in our 1-year-old classroom, and our sons were together in the 2-year-old room.
What is your son's name?
Tanner.
How old is Tanner now?
He is 16.
Did Tanner and Philip become friends?
Yes, ma'am.
And they were how old at the time?
They were 2, and they were turning 3 that following January.
How long were Tanner and Philip friends?
They've been friends ever since.
What kinds of things did Tanner and Philip do together when they were small?
They were at the same preschool together. They played t-ball together. They played soccer together. The older they got, when they moved back to town, they played actually against each other in soccer. The older they got, it was more basketball, skateboarding.
So, going back to that, was there a point when Diana left Clarksville with the children?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know where she went?
To Florida.
About how long did she live in Florida with the children, to your knowledge?
About a year.
And did she come back to Clarksville then?
Yes.
did you and your family renew your acquaintance with Diana and her family at that time?
Yes.
Were Tanner and Philip friends then when they came back from Florida?
Yes.
About how old were Tanner and Philip at that time?
It was middle school, so 10, 11 maybe.
How would you describe the nature of their friendship, that is Tanner and Philip?
From day one, when they were toddlers, they clicked immediately and were super close. And when they come back, Tanner's just always referred to Philip as his brother.
When they came back to Clarksville from Florida, you said that was middle school years or early middle school, is that
Yes.
right? Did Philip spend time in your home?
Yes. When they first moved back and they were where they were living at the time, the boys actually went to school together for the first semester. And Philip was actually coming off the bus and staying at the house for a little while in the afternoons. And after that, they still stayed very close.
What did you observe in that early middle school time as to Philip's behavior, or what kind of young person he was?
It was basic early preteen boys. They did the basic stuff. They were at each other's houses. They were out in the neighborhood playing basketball, skateboarding. Nothing out of the ordinary that, the rest of the boys weren't, doing.
Were there occasions when Philip ate or spent the night at your home?
Yes, ma'am.
How often would you say that occurred?
He stayed a lot of weekends with us. During the summer, during school breaks and things, he would stay longer, days at a time.
Was he well behaved when he was in your home?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he sometimes spend holidays or special occasions with your family?
Yes, basically every holiday we go to Paducah because it's not that far. Our entire family is there. He's went with us on a couple occasions on Easter, 4th of July, New Year's Eve, different things like that.
Did he ever spend a family vacation with your family?
He has never been on a family vacation with us. The four of us have went somewhere together with Diana and I and the boys.
Okay. Were there occasions when you traveled with Philip to Kentucky to pick Tanner up in Kentucky?
Yes, on a couple of occasions he went with me to get the kids.
How was Philip's behavior on those occasions?
I remember one time it was more of the earbuds, it was just kind of like the ride there, like it would have been if Tanner was in the car with me. And then there was another occasion where it was before they were moving, and we talked basically the whole way there, just about, in general, just small talk.
Did Philip ever go to church with you?
Yes.
And during the summertime, what kind of time did Philip spend in your home during those years?
He would spend several days at a time. We both worked. Tanner would be there, so it was kind of like they were, doing their little thing. I mean, he would spend days at a time, and then there would be sometimes where there may be a week that they wouldn't see each other in between. And then, but when he was there, he was normally there for more than one day at a time.
Did you notice any change in Philip's behavior or trouble with Philip's behavior before the move to Massachusetts?
I didn't notice anything.
Okay. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Sure.
I'm going to show you a photograph and ask you if you recognize what's depicted in the photograph.
Yes, ma'am.
What does the photograph depict?
It's Philip and his two sisters.
Does that photograph depict how Philip appeared in the year or so before the move to Massachusetts?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd move to admit the photograph, Your Honor.
Okay, I'll see counsel decide that, please.